Okay, so this is a continuation of the previous video, and to do the graphing that we need to do, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to use some colors, and I'm going to graph that. To graph that, all the y coordinates have been multiplied by 0.5. So I'm going to put y new here, and I'm going to multiply all my y coordinates by 0.5. So 0, 0.5, 0, negative 0.5, and 0. I'm now going to graph my thetas and my pink y news. So I'm going to go over here. At 0, we're at 0. And at pi over 2, we're at 0.5. And at pi, we're at 0. And at 3 pi over 2, we're at negative 0.5. And at 2 pi, we're back at 0. And then you kind of play the connect the dots game. And you also need to do it backwards. Well, and it follows a pattern. This goes up, down, up. So this is going to go down, up, down. So there's my pink graph. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do the next graph in green. So now for my green stuff, which I'm going to write y new, I'm going to go back to my original y's, and all of these y's get multiplied by 2. So 0, 2, 0, negative 2, 0. I'm going to graph my angles and my new green y news. So 0, 0, pi over 2, 2, pi, 0, 3 pi over 2, negative 2, 0, 0. And then I'm going to go backwards and do the same thing and follow the pattern. Down, up, down. Oh, that was an error. You want this one right here. So there's my green graph. Now if we go back and look for a second and we think about up top, A was our amplitude. Right here, 0.5 is my amplitude, and each one of my pink curves went up and down. Each one of my hill and valleys goes up and down 0.5. And on my green graph, each hill and valley goes up and down 2. So now we're going to go to the next page. And the next page talks about period. So I'm going to write down the trig function again so we have it in front of us. So in this case, it's going to be y equals a, and then whatever my trig function was, b x minus c plus d. So it says, when is B a stretch? Be very careful. This B thing is what I call a girly thing, and it's very backwards. So B is a stretch when the absolute value of B is less than 1, and it's a shrink when the absolute value of B is greater than 1. And if B is negative, you made the whole inside X stuff negative, and when you make X stuff negative, you reflect across the y-axis. So now this one says that I need to sketch a graph of sine of theta over 2. I'm going to do the same thing over that I did on the last page. I'm going to write down my thetas, and because I'm using sine, I'm going to write down my y's. So my thetas were 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and my y's, because I'm using sine, were 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and I forgot to write 2 pi down here, and 0. This time, I'm not talking about altering any y stuff because this 2 is on the inside. In fact, if I rewrite this, it's like y equals sine of 1/2 theta. So I need to do the opposite because it's a girly thing. This says divide all the thetas by 2 or multiply them by 1/2, but I need to do the opposite. So instead of dividing by 2 up here, I'm going to actually multiply everything by 2. So if I go up here, I'm going to have theta new this time. I'm not going to have y new, it's theta new. And so it's still 0, but when I multiply this one by 2, I get pi, and this one's going to be 2 pi, and this one's going to be a 3 pi, and this one's going to be a 4 pi. So to graph my new graph, I'm going to start at 0, 0, and then I'm going to go to pi, and at pi I'm all the way up at 1. And at 2 pi, I'm back at 0. But you're missing half your graph because the sine graph goes up and down. So to get the other half, if this side goes up, then we go backwards. And this side over here has to be the other half and has to go down. you can tell that this graph was stretched horizontally because it takes the whole graph this time to go one full period of going down and back up again. You're going to try the next one all by yourself and then go back to Edmodo and check and see if you got it right.